Mr. Chair, members of the commission, we're now live.
Good evening and welcome to the March 6, 2024 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Bob Sutton. I'm the chair, and I'd like for commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Michael Galway.
Jeffrey Haynes.
Karen Burdett.
Julie Pelletier.
Commissioner Doman.
Cristina Arado.
Mark Dominiani.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Chris Berger, Historic Preservation Staff.
And Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is the item number 1, which is the Great Seneca Plan Briefing. And I see at the table here we have two staff members, Jessica McBerry and Seneca Bullinger. So I will let you all take over, and you have mics in front of you. You can turn them on, and oh, we got another one. I'm sorry, did I? If you could introduce yourself.
Hi, apologies. My name is Marin Hill, and I am from the Mid-County Planning Division.
Okay.
And leading this plan.
Terrific, thank you. If you could introduce yourselves and then take it over. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jessica McBerry. I'm the planning supervisor for our Mid-County Master Plan team. We're pleased to be here with you tonight to talk through the Great Seneca Plan.
And I'm Serena Bollinger. I'm with the Historic Preservation Program, and I'm assisting with the Historic Preservation portion of the plan.
Thank you. So the Great Seneca Plan, just to give you an idea about where we are in the process, has been an ongoing process since February of 2022. We have gone through, scope of work and a very long period of visioning and analysis. So working with community members, with other agencies, with our partners within the division as well. We recently presented the staff draft or the working draft of the plan to the planning board. And we will be having our public hearing on March 14th, so next Thursday, with the planning board, and then moving into work sessions the following week. We expect to transmit the plan in late spring to the county council, and then have a public hearing and work sessions with the council throughout the summer, wrapping up by the end of the summer, hopefully. So quick. Yes, so that's our schedule moving forward. Next slide. Just to give you an idea of where the plan is before Serena moves into the information about the historic sites, the Great Seneca Plan area is actually a very large plan area. It covers over 4,000 acres, which is atypical for our more recent plans. And it also has discontinuous borders. As you can see, the red areas on the map are all parts of the plan area. It's bordered by the city of Rockville, and to the east, the town of Washington Grove to the northeast. And then the city of Gaithersburg actually takes up that kind of donut around the center red spot in the middle. So it's disconnected by the city of Gaithersburg. It runs through the heart of the I-270 corridor, and as well as the Intercounty Connector and MD 355. Serena is probably going to touch on areas throughout the plan area. We will be focusing in my portion when I discuss some of the key recommendations with you at the end of our presentation. We'll just be focusing on the Life Sciences Center, which is the southeastern part of the plan area.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, I know you have a lot to do tonight. I'm going to burn through 5,000 years of history and 4,000 square miles pretty quickly. So feel free to ask me any questions if you need any clarification. But just to open, we have 3 master plan sites, a locational atlas site, 2 burial sites inventory, one of which is also a master plan site, and 1 site on the National Register of Historic Places. So I'm going to give you a general historic context and then tell you a little bit about the plan sites later, or the designated areas. So we often forget our natural history, but given that we have such a large area within the plan that is retained as a natural landscape because part of Seneca Creek State Park is within the plan area, I wanted to let you know that the natural landscape that would have been in this area is rolling hills, thick forestscapes, and waterways, which are going to feature a lot into the history of this area. So indigenous communities such as the Piscataway and the Susquehannock use this area mostly for hunting and for traveling along the waterways, but also during the winter would have set up temporary encampments along the streams and rivers. The white settlers arrived with indentured European labor and enslaved African labor beginning in the 1600s around this area, once again radiating out of the waterways, which is what they'd used for transport up to this area. They forced the labor to convert the natural landscape into an agrarian and agricultural industrial landscape over the next century. Suburbanization is a key land development in all of Montgomery County's history, and it began as small communities, which developed around large tracts owned by farming landowners, and particularly started around road intersections, beginning in the late 1700s. These communities generally remained segregated, with Black communities providing their own services, while they were underserved by the public and private sectors. And so you continue to see the Great Seneca plan area overlaid over one of our earliest maps, which kind of shows you how few landowners there were at the time. Then our suburbanization turns into something we recognize a little bit more with our modern landscape. It grew exponentially after World War II with investment in the highways, including I-270. Oh, I forgot to mention that the small communities also grew because of the introduction of the railroad in 1870. So after that, the main suburbanization happened with the investment in the highways, including I-270, as we mentioned, and then which abuts and also intersects with the Great Seneca Plan area, which attracted federal agencies and later private sector fans of federal agencies. So a few of the master plan sites that have been designated on the master plan for historic places. So the Clopper Mill ruins and the St. Rose of Lima Church and Graveyard. Francis Clopper was a white slaveholder who had at least one mill in this area, which he bought third hand. He used the mill for grist, which is a horrible word for the grain you use to make flour. It was also at some point a sawmill and a woolen mill. There were at least 5 mills in the area, again, because of the waterways and water's life. And so, as we've seen from the development around here, they were very highly used. The Clopper Mill ruins remain, but there is at least one more mill in the plan area, but it is submerged under Clopper Lake, which was created in 1975, kind of as part of the history of the suburbanization in the area where they were trying to make it more attractive for tourists. And so that was the loss of that landscape. And then the St. Rose of Lima Church and Graveyard. This was also built by Francis Clopper. It's a Catholic church, and this is an attached graveyard. There is a section for African and enslaved people within that cemetery. One of the other sites is the Bellward Farm. This is a mid-1800s farm complex, and it has 2 preliminary plans and 2 approved site plans. And there are recommendations for this site, and it retains a number of the recommendations from the 2010 plan. So here, some of the recommendations include preserving views of the farmstead, requiring adaptive reuse of the farm buildings to uses that complement the community, stepping down new buildings adjacent to the farm, preserving approximately 7 acres of open space and mature trees to convey the environmental setting of the farm, supporting the creation of a new recreational space along Muddy Branch Road, and providing bicycle parking and usable open spaces. The locational atlas site is down in the southeast of the plan area and is this bridge called, rather unceremoniously, Humpback. But it is from 1954, but a timber bridge similar to this has been on site since the 1880s. And it was considered to be removed from the locational atlas, and the HPC recommended that in 2005, but the planning board chose to retain it on the locational atlas. The burial sites inventory, there are two sites. One of them is the graveyard attached to that church I mentioned, and then the other one is, as far as we know, possibly a single burial in Seneca Creek State Park of a Revolutionary War soldier. The site that is on the National Register of Historic Places is the National Institute for Standards and Technology. This was designated because of its architecture and its association with the work that has been done there since the mid-century. There's also a site that has been identified as eligible, it just is not on the National Register, and that is a Queen Anne residential home called the C.G. Statler House. And that's it, 12,000 years in 4 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Or do you want to continue? Are you
Oh,
continuing?
yes, we're just
I'm
going to give
sorry.
you more information about the whole plan.
Okay,
so you
great.
can see how
Thank
the
you.
plan
I
could
think I
affect
only have
Sorry.
3 slides, so we can maybe not as 12,000 years in the 4 minutes, but so just to briefly, I mentioned that the plan area covers all of these areas shown in white and in red on the map. Our plan focuses the most on the area in red, which is known as the Life Sciences Center, because it's both an economic driver for the county and it's also a place where we've seen a lot of recent development and expect to continue to see that change. So that's where most of our recommendations are centered. And the only area that Serena mentioned that is in the Life Sciences Center is the Bellward Farm site. Next. Our vision for this area is that it remains a thriving economic hub, continues to attract and retain life science jobs, as well as become more of a complete community, interspersing the life sciences uses with residential uses, with parks, with the natural environment, as well as some retail. And then we are also recommending that we transform some of these large arterial roads that are in the area, like Great Seneca Highway and portions of Key West Avenue, from barriers into vital elements of the public realm that really allow people to connect across and use for more than just traveling by car. Go ahead. So the key recommendations for this area are really to encourage compact mixed-use development that integrate some of these uses that I spoke with. This graphic you can see here it's kind of encapsulates our vision well. The pink dots are future transit stops that are currently in motion with the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. And then you can see a network of greenways as well on this map, the penciled in lines are new roadways. So part of it is creating a finer grained street grid that has these sidewalks and bikeways, as well as dedicated transit ways, which allow people a number of options for getting around the plan area. Some of our biggest recommendations are repurposing parts of Key West and Great Seneca Highway, and reclaiming space for people walking and biking, but also for recreation. So creating kind of parks and recreational amenities, as well as small retail amenities in the repurposed lanes on these two roadways. We are also establishing an overlay zone in this area that supports mixed use and helps us to attract some of the residential uses that we're hoping to intermix with the life science uses that are already there. And then finally, establish a place management organization that can really do some of the promotion and programming and coordination between the companies and residential buildings that exist there to really activate and do placemaking in the area. And then this is just our schedule again. We have the public hearing next week, and we'll be moving through work sessions with the planning board throughout March and April. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, would you, okay. Are there any questions? Commissioner Doman.
Yes, excuse me. When you say one of the goals is to repurpose Key West and Great Seneca Highway, what does that repurpose really mean?
Sure. And usually I have a handy graphic, but we tried to keep it short. So when we say that we're repurposing lanes, right now, Great Seneca, I'll use Key West as an example. It's 3 lanes in each direction. So we'd be reducing it to 2 lanes in each direction. So we're not repurposing the entire road, but rather a portion of the road. So two lanes going east, 2 lanes going west, and then part of the median. So that gives us a substantial amount of space to work with if we were to repurpose these roads. And the repurposing means really reusing for other purposes. So what we envision is that on this clustered towards the southern side, there would be the 4 lanes going in each direction with a median in the middle. And then north of that, between the existing buildings and developments and that roadway, there would be space for a shared use path, a bike lane, as well as about 50 or 60 feet of open space, which we are recommending be activated with some of the things that I mentioned, like playgrounds, parklets, maybe small restaurants or retail kiosks, so that it would be really a place that people could visit and use for recreation, use throughout on their way home or while they're at work. So that's what we envision. And we have some examples in other places, but it's kind of like a linear recreational amenity.
Other questions? I'm sorry? Oh, Commissioner Burdett.
Yes, thank you for this presentation. In all of this, is there going to be any efforts made to remember or recall the history of the various parts of this Great Seneca Plan, of the area, the families, the communities, anything like that?
Sorry, just to clarify, you mean like implementing something or within the plan itself?
I'm not sure.
I guess,
yeah.
so within the plan, we've worked with the Historic Preservation Division, or, with the countywide planning to, chronicle the history within the plan that talks about many of the things that Serena mentioned today. We also have an appendix that goes along with the plan that details the historic sites that are in and around the plan area. And then within the plan, we also, in the recommendations, have the recommendations that Serena presented for the Bellward campus site. So in that way, yeah, we are very much trying to include the history of the area in the plan. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Thanks. Is this near the Shady Grove Metro?
It's, I think it's about 2 miles from the Shady Grove Metro. So the area, the Life Sciences Center, if you see in red there, this area right in the center of that red is the Adventist Healthcare Shady Grove Medical Center. And just to the south of that is the universities at Shady Grove, just to give you an idea of where that is. The Shady Grove Metro Station, you can see on the map, is that little M in a black square.
Where?
On the
I
east
see it,
side,
I
on the
see it.
right side.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see it,
I know,
okay.
it's easy to miss. So within the plan area is the Washington Grove MARC station, which is just a little further up. But yeah, so it's relatively near the Shady Grove.
So
Metro
is part
station.
of the transit portion of this to get people from the metro to this area, like are the
Yeah.
bus system, et cetera?
Exactly,
Okay.
yes. So some of those transit stops that I pointed out on the graphic, those transit stops are part of a network of kind of bus rapid transit light system that the MCDOT is currently working on called the Great Seneca Transit Network, and it will have 4 bus lines, and I think 2 of them go to Shady Grove
Oh,
Metro,
okay.
and they all terminate at the universities at Shady Grove, so they connect out both to the existing transit network and then also to existing communities like the Kentlands or destinations like downtown Crown and the Rio Lakefront.
Okay. My other question is, what is the breezeway?
That is a good question. So the breezeway is a bicycle breezeway is kind of I've heard it described as a bike highway. So it's just
It's for bikes.
yes.
So it's, okay. Okay, that's cool. Thanks.
sure.
Commissioner Burdett.
Is the NIST campus the same one that was in the Post today?
I'm
Or-
not sure. I did not see the article in the Post today, but
Okay.
This is Rebecca Ballo for the record, yes.
It
there's
is,
that
okay.
same campus.
and that's labeled number 2 on the map. Yeah, is NIST.
Anyone else? Okay.
I would like to make a motion that the HPC prepare a letter in support of the Great Seneca Plan to be prepared by staff and approved by the commission, and then forwarded on to the council?
The planning board for
The
this
Planning
one.
board, yes.
The planning board.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Pelletier, a second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Thank you very much. We look
Thank
forward
you
to
so
seeing this
much.
implemented. Thank you so much for coming to us tonight.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Next item on our agenda is historic area work permits. And have the permits for this meeting been advertised?
Yes, Chair Sutton, they were advertised in the February 21st edition of the Washington Times.
Thank you. So, we hope that we can expedite a number of these projects, and if you intend to testify one way or the other, and you've not submitted a form to staff, we would like for you to do that now. The first item on this, hopefully on this consent agenda, is item number 1B at 7312 Willow Avenue, Tacoma Park. I'm sorry. I've got used to doing it from the old. 2B. 2C at 4609 Waverly Avenue, Garrett Park. 2D at 7200 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park. 2E at 7338 Piney Branch Road, Tacoma Park. 2F at 17715 Meeting House Road, Sandy Spring. 2G at 7328 Piney Branch Road, Tacoma Park. 2H at 7305 Baltimore Avenue, Tacoma Park. And 2I at 7801 Hampton Lane, Bethesda.
Mr. Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with the staff reports, based upon the record before us, and in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels, and including any conditions recommended by staff. HOP number 1055350 at 7312 Willow Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP number 1054048 at 4609 Waverly Avenue, Garrett Park. HOP number 1055219 at 7200 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP number 1057864 at 7338 Piney Branch Road, Tacoma Park. HOP number 1057575 at 17715 Meeting House Road, Sandy Spring. HOP number 1058872 at 7328 Piney Branch Road, Tacoma Park. HOP number 1058866 at 7305 Baltimore Avenue, Tacoma Park. And HOP number 1058892 at 7801 Hamden Lane, Bethesda.
Is there a second?
It's Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you so much. We appreciate projects that are put together in such a way that we can easily approve them. The next item is a hearing on property number 2A at 511 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Mr. Chair. This is the staff report for the Historic Area Work Permit at 511 Philadelphia Avenue in Tacoma Park. It's a contributing resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District. It was constructed circa 1926. As you can see in the map in front of you, it's at the edge of the district, and it's to be reviewed under the Tacoma Park Historic District Design Guidelines, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. This is the house. It's viewed from Philadelphia Avenue, and in front, and then off to the side. So the applicants proposed to demolish a portion of the rear of the house, construct a rear addition with a deck, which isn't shown on the side elevation, relocate 2 existing windows from the rear to the right side. That actually should be the left side. I apologize. Replace the roof, and then change the fenestration on the facade. Other repairs noted in the application include siding and woodwork. That work does not require a HOP. It's in-kind repair and replacement, but just staff notes that work is eligible for the county historic preservation tax credit. So we'll just run through the proposed elevations. Here you see in the front, the applicant proposes to relocate the door and this pair of windows. The new rear elevation shows the rear of the proposed addition with the deck. This is the right side elevation, which again you can see the addition with hardy plank siding on the first floor, and then cedar shingle above. In the left elevation, you can see here and here are the relocated windows from the rear elevation to illuminate the relocated stairway in the interior. So staff finds that the partial demolition at the rear wall will not significantly impact the character of the house or the surrounding district. We also find the proposed size, mass, and architectural details of the addition are compatible with the character of the existing house. While we recognize that the inset of the addition is narrower than what the HPC typically prefers, due to the narrowness of the lot, the inset proposed would be preferred by staff instead of a narrower but deeper addition. Staff also finds that the change in siding will help to differentiate the historic construction from the non-historic addition. Staff further finds that the proposed Anderson 400 series windows are not compatible and recommends a condition for approval that the windows in the addition have a finish consistent with painted wood with permanently installed interior and exterior grills with a spacer bar between the glass. Staff finds that relocating the 2 rear windows to the left elevation will not significantly impact the character of the resource, and staff does not find that altering the fenestration at the front to be consistent with the design guidelines, which state, in part, additions and alterations to the first floor at the front of a structure are discouraged, but not automatically prohibited. And the design guidelines also state original size and shape of window and door opening should be maintained where feasible. And staff notes that in the floor plans, this change appears to be driven by reorienting the interior floor plan. So in staff's research, the Sanborn map showed that the property originally had a full-width front porch, which would have created a fully symmetrical facade. We don't have a date for the existing partial width front porch, but that did create the current appearance, which is slightly off balance. Staff does not find that this change is consistent with the design guidelines and Chapter 24A8B1 and 2, and recommends the approval of this HOP not extend to the front fenestration alteration. And staff recommends the HPC approve the HOP with the 4 following conditions that were in the staff report, which include detailed specifications for the windows, and the proposed addition shall be submitted to staff for review and approval. The proposed windows shall have a finish consistent with painted wood and have permanently affixed exterior and interior grills with a spacer bar between the glass. And staff is encouraging the HPC to delegate final approval authority to verify this condition to staff. Additionally, detailed deck and railing specifications shall be submitted to staff for review and approval. with final approval authority to verify that this condition is compatible with the character of the site and surrounding district, delegated to staff. Additionally, documentation demonstrating that this proposal has been reviewed and approved by the Tacoma Park arborist shall be submitted. Just to note, it doesn't appear that there are any trees that would be impacted by this, but as a project in the Tacoma Park Historic District, we always require that that be included in the application. And then finally, as noted before, staff recommends the condition that approval of this hop does not extend to the alterations to the front windows and doors, with final plans showing the existing configuration of materials submitted to staff for review and approval prior to the issuance of the final hop. With those 4 conditions, staff finds that the proposal is compatible under the design guidelines 24A8B1, 2, and D, and standards 2, 9, and 10, and recommends approval. Are there any questions for staff?
Are there questions for staff? Commissioner Burdett.
Is this bungalow a kit house, or is it an example of several other similar houses in the immediate area? And do any of those houses have the variation of window and front door placements that this project is requesting?
I can't speak to whether or not it's a kit house. Our records did not identify it as such. This block in particular, which isn't all entirely within the historic district, is an absolute hodgepodge, as you actually see in the second preliminary for discussion later. So the orientation and arrangement of windows and doors is sort of all over the place on this block in particular. So in the immediate surrounding district, it's not uncommon to see an asymmetrical facade.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, thank you. If I understand right, the applicant is requesting an Anderson 400 series wood-clad vinyl. Is that correct?
That's the specification that was included in the application, yes.
And if I'm looking at this, there are some drawings. I guess it's in the report of full divided light, simulated divided light, removable interior grill, fine light grills between the glass. What is a 400 series wood vinyl clad? Which one of these is that?
Well, so the application wasn't. Let me pull from the staff report real quickly if I can. So this is where we run into some challenges because different manufacturers call their windows different things. And what is, we haven't run into issues where a company calls their window a true divided light. But what one company calls a simulated divided light includes a spacer bar between the grills, and for other manufacturers, that isn't the case. So in the condition, staff was explicit about the criteria that a window had to satisfy in order to meet the HPC's typical requirement, and the condition is outlaid, in part because we don't hold the applicant to a specific window. I mean, if they propose a window that the HPC approves at the hop, but then they come in for their final permit plans and it's a different window, but it has all of the same characteristics, staff would approve that window because it's consistent with what the HPC approved. So what we see here on page 6 of the staff report at the top is what Anderson calls a full divided light is permanently affixed interior and exterior grills with an interior spacer bar. Mm-hmm. That's been the requirement for what the HPC has approved as a simulated divided light. And then their simulated divided light does not include the spacer bar, and you can have a permanent or removable interior grill, which is not what the HPC's typical requirement is. And then they have the removable interior grill, and then they have their grills between the glass, which are both two categories that the HPC has consistently found to be incompatible as a substitute for a traditional divided light window.
And what windows, what is these, what kind of windows are currently in there? Are these the original windows, or are they vinyl replacement windows? What's
Well,
currently in there?
So the windows that we're talking about are only the ones going in the addition. There are no changes proposed for the windows in the historic portion of the house.
Oh, so as we see this picture that's up, these are not affected then?
Correct. There are 2 wood windows in the rear that are being relocated onto the left elevation here, here and here. This is where a new stairway is being installed. The center stairway is being removed, and so these windows are being removed from the rear elevation, but the only windows that we're talking about as part of this are the ones on the rear addition that's proposed under this hop.
Are is this a contributing resource?
Yes.
Or it is? And are the windows in the front full divided light then right now?
They appear to be. They're behind storms. The architect is here, but again, those are not going to be impacted by the work proposed because they're there.
Okay. So as this diagram is, so what we call the Anderson 400, is that what's called then the full divided light that I see here?
Well, no. Those are all options available within the line. So the application material wasn't, they identified simulated divided light windows, but staff is unsure whether that spec is for the simulated divided light window that you see in front of you that doesn't have an interior spacer bar and could have removable grills, or is what Anderson in their branding calls full divided light.
So the applicant will answer this then?
Well, I mean, which part are you, I mean, what's the question that you're trying to get an answer to? What are they proposing, or what is staff recommending as an acceptable window?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I have to know what the applicant is proposing then.
Okay, but, I mean, regardless of what the applicant is proposing, staff's recommendation is that a window has to satisfy those criteria as a finish consistent with painted wood, permanently affixed interior and exterior grills, and spacer bars between the glass to provide the appropriate shadow line to be a compatible substitute for divided light wood window.
And this is true even on windows that are not normally viewed from the right-of-way?
Yes, on contributing resources in the Tacoma Park Historic District, that has been the typical requirement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Pelletier?
Thank you. Even on an addition, on a new addition, that's still
Yes.
a requirement?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a clad window instead of requiring wood. On an outstanding addition, the typical requirement would be for a wood window to go in there.
Okay.
But for contributing resources, aluminum clad wood window is one of the generally accepted substitute materials in the same way that fiber cement siding is an acceptable substitute material for wood on an addition or new construction in the district.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? If not, I would invite, I believe, the owner's representative, Megan DeNicola. I hope I got your name correct. Nicola, thank you. Yes, if you could come and sit down and turn the mic on and state your name for the record. It'll turn, what color does it turn? Green? Red?
Sure. My name is Megan DeNicola.
Is it on? I can't tell.
Is it on?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. And you'll have 7 minutes. If you would like to do a testimony, you have 7 minutes, or if you'd like to answer questions, whatever, but you'll have 7 minutes for your place here.
Sure. Okay. And Dan, are you flipping? Yep. Okay, great. So thank you for allowing me to come speak with you today. My name is Megan DeNicola. I'm the architect representing the owners at 511 Philadelphia Avenue. I've reviewed the staff report in full and thank the staff for the recommendations and feedback. We agree with the recommendations on the windows and are going to be providing a window with a spacer bar to simulate that full divided light. We also agree on providing additional documentation on the deck and railing, as well as the arborist report. We've already met with the Tacoma Park arborist regarding this property. I'm here to appeal this decision on the fenestration changes to the front facade. So 511 Philadelphia Avenue is a contributing resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District. It is situated back off Philadelphia Avenue, which is a busy thoroughfare. The house is situated back off the road quite a bit at the crest of Philadelphia Avenue as you go northbound from Piney Branch Avenue. At issue is whether or not the proposed changes to the front facade are generally consistent with the predominant architectural style and preserve the predominant architecture features of the resource. Dan, can you just flip ahead? Sorry. So these are the views from the street from southwest or southeast and northwest. The next slide. So this just speaks to the predominant features of an American bungalow. So an American bungalow, typically, we're looking at obviously features of extended rakes and eaves, deep shadow lines, a prominent front porch. They're typically small in scale, 1.5 stories, potentially 1 stories, a shed dormer or other dormer, and then details like exposed rake eaves, gable brackets, et cetera. The tapered masonry columns on this facade, the deep eaves, the porch, and the shed dormer all kind of contribute to the architectural aesthetic of the bungalow. So factors to consider per the Tacoma Historic District guidelines are whether or not any changes to the facade would impact the predominant architectural features. As opposed to a center hall colonial or even a Cape Cod style bungalow, symmetry on the facade is not really a big driving factor in bungalows, as evidenced throughout Tacoma Park. This particular bungalow, although it did at one point have a historic porch, now currently has an asymmetrical porch, which is driving and is very predominant on that facade. The current front door is not centered underneath the shed dormer. It is asymmetrical as well. So there's not really a driving force of symmetry on the fenestration below the porch eave line. Next slide. So the proposed facade I've shown you here in this slide where we've reversed the door and the windows. We've aligned the windows below the existing shed dormer to get some rhythm on the facade there and change the front door. As you can see, there's not a marked difference to the overall impact of the facade to the viewer. You still understand it to be a bungalow. I don't know that given the fact that the porch is already asymmetrical, that anyone would guess that the door hadn't been purposely on that weighted side of the facade. Next slide. So I've just indicated on the plans, which you saw earlier, the elevations and also the floor plan change where we're going to change the door and the windows. Next slide. This is another Photoshop mock-up of the door and window change. On the left of the screen, you see the existing door and windows, and on the right, you see the swap. Again, there's not a huge impact in terms of understanding this as a contributing resource to the historic district. On either side, neither neighbor on either side of this property is a contributing resource. They're non-conforming and they're non-historic. Next slide. So if you look around Tacoma Park, and I walked around the neighborhood and took photographs of other bungalow-style homes that fall under this category of not having a symmetrical facade or having an offset front door below that porch line. And in no way does the fenestration below that porch line impact its understanding as a bungalow or detract from its contributing nature as a historical resource. Next slide. So we just run through these. So a lot similar, originally designed homes, the bungalow came into fruition because there was a growing need for open floor plans and entertaining. And so a lot of the facades have a playfulness about them because they were really responding to what was going on behind that front wall. Next slide. So you can see there's lots of examples of asymmetrical bungalows that are original, even with a full width porch having a door on the side. As you can see at that 7118 Maple Street, that's an original facade. Next slide. So these are just more examples. Next slide. You can kind of see that, a bungalow doesn't have this driving factor of not being able to have the fenestration kind of do what it needs to do underneath that porch without taking away from it. Thank you.
Are you finished?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Nicola, correct?
DiNicola.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
okay.
DiNicola.
I
Are there any
messed it up
questions
for a
for Ms.
while, too.
DiNicola?
I have a quick question.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Thank you. Like, how detrimental is it going to be to your plan if the door doesn't move?
So the reason why I'm here is the owners couldn't be here tonight, but what we've decided on, so right now the front door opens into the center of the living room space. So it's this home is occupied by a family of 4 with some multi-generation longer stay parents that come to visit. So the front door opens into the current living room and basically divides that living room. So there's a small space then allocated for a seating area in front of the fireplace and then a larger space for living room furniture on the one side. We've decided, or we're proposing to move the door so that we can create a narrow entryway that allows for traffic to flow into the house without kind of bifurcating a living room. Right now, I mean, if you were to furnish the room in the center of the room the way you would hope to do and keep the door where it is, the door would open right into a sofa or right onto your living room seating area.
Is that what it does now?
Yes.
And that's how it's arranged right now?
Right, so right now it's arranged where it kind of bifurcates the room, and so you open it up, there's,
And you're in the,
you're in the
You're in
living
the
room,
living
and so
room.
they basically put a seating area on the one side of the door leaf, and on the door swing side, you walk in and there's a couple of chairs and a mudroom bench in the middle of the room, because they're just trying to make
Right.
the storage situation work. It's a small lot, it's a narrow house, and we're trying to do the best we can to make it functional for a modern family.
okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Right here?
Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Doman. I had the opportunity to go by the house this afternoon. I did walk up and down the block, and I did see your point that you're making, that there's a wide variety of where the door is and where the door isn't, and where the windows are and how the windows don't line up necessarily. Tacoma Park is a hodgepodge of whatever you want it to be, I think, you know. Question. I guess I have no more questions. I just want. I'm out of place. This is discussion. I'm sorry.
Yes, just questions at this point. Thank you. Commissioner Haynes.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about your addition. You are proposing a 2-inch offset of the addition to the original house. In reality, that's going to visually appear flush. It's a large addition relative to the house. It's 2/3. The footprint is 2/3 the footprint of the original house. It seems to me, looking at your first and second floor plans, that you could afford to inset them 6 to 8 inches on either side without giving up significant space. And I think it would, I think the massing looks fine, but I do think it would not look two different materials being flush on the main level. And that offset would help better distinguish the original resource from the addition. So I would ask that you implement a stronger offset in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 inches on either side.
Is that a question or a comment?
Well, it's definitely a comment.
Okay.
And my
Thank you.
question
If
is,
if we can deal with questions right now, that'd be
sorry,
great. Thank you.
sorry, but that's
Commissioner
my
Bur-
question to you, to please consider that.
Commissioner Burdett.
Is there any remaining evidence within the living room that there was once a division of that space?
No.
None at all. And did you check any of the old plan books or walk over into outside of Tacoma, but in the immediately adjacent community where there are lots of bungalows, to see if there was also a comparative.
I have
Plan.
walked Tacoma to see, this is not a kit home, to answer your
Yeah.
previous question. There's no stamps on any of the door frames or any of the headers in the basement. There's no evidence that it's a kit home. If you walk around, there are several iterations of this bungalow throughout Tacoma Park. Some of them have been altered over time and some of them have not been.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I believe we have a few folks who have some comments that they would like to make in our deliberation section. Would anyone like to kick this off? Commissioner Burdett.
I agree with Commissioner Haynes's questioning request for inset on your rear addition. Those are very large spaces. I don't think you'd really miss too many inches off of them, and it would make a significant, you would be addressing one of the requirements. Now back to the front porch. I happen to live very close by, and I live in a bungalow with a 3/4 porch that we put on because the original the full width porch was lost at some point in the past. So I understand it where you get to a certain situation. And I was trying to understand, I was thinking about my neighbors because my living room, my front divides into living room, dining room, so the central door just moves between those two spaces for better or for worse. I really do understand how small this living space is and what the door and what the movement through the space can do to furniture. Because in the adjacent bungalows to ours, the plan is a little bit different. But in their plan, there was a bedroom and a living room, but even then, you walk through the door's centered, and then you have to kind of angle through the living room to get to the back of the house. I think if you want to make your case for this, you might want to look at the old 1920s plan books in detail, not necessarily the kit books, but just the plan books. Because from my understanding of our community, the East Silver Spring community, was the developers did use the plan books because we keep seeing them over and over and over. And their variations and sizes are all over the widths and the lengths and all are all over the place. But there is a pattern there. Even if it's not in Tacoma, you might be able to make your case. Other than that, I appreciate your use of this shingles in the back on the upper level and then the hardy plank below. That's nice. So, again, those are just my comments. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Doman.
Yeah, this isn't a question, I guess. Like I said before, I had walked down and looked at the houses in the neighborhood, and looking at your house and looking at what the proposed front elevation is, and hearing your rationale behind why you would like to have this door moved, I can support your proposal as put forth, which I guess kind of means that we don't support recommendation number 4, excuse me, from the staff. But, and I also kind of think that from Commissioner Haynes, maybe of moving that addition back in maybe 6 to 8 inches or something like that. I think that's a reasonable request. But other than that, I support this, and I think your proposal to put the door over to the right side of the house, I think is reasonable. That's my comment. Thanks.
Commissioner Haynes.
My comment previously stands, but I think you made a good case. I think you made a good case of precedent for asymmetrical composition. Given that whether the original house had a full-length porch, it is now a 3/4 porch. It's a major defining feature, the porch, and as you said, everything sort of behind it distorts that reading of the facade. So I would support changing the door. I appreciate that you were able to center the windows with the dormer windows, and I think the composition is consistent with precedent homes in the neighborhood. So, and if you can find a plan book that has that, more power to you. But I totally get the furniture, the impact of the door in the center and arranging furniture. It really doesn't make sense, even back in the day. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have 2 cents.
Commissioner Pelletier?
I agree with everything that's been said. I feel less strongly about the addition in the back coming in. That doesn't, what you've drawn seems okay to me. But my issue is with just taking the 2 windows and flipping it with the door. I think when you do that, I agree with the plan. I think spot on, you're making a better space. But I think it's awkward. And when you were showing other houses in the neighborhood, I was looking at 7118 Maple and 238 Park. And they have and my house, talking about our houses, my house is this way.
Okay,
There's a
4.
clump of windows, and then the door. Like this one, yeah. And then the other one was 238 Park, that one. I think that, this is purely my opinion, but just based on visually and how the whole thing balances out. It's all, the whole facade, even if you take those windows and you center them up above, nothing else really relates to anything. And so I think with the shortening or the weirdness of the porch now, that it's not going all the way across, I think that kind of killed the facade when they did that. So I'm sympathetic to moving the door, but I would encourage you to do a big bank of windows rather than doing a 2 and a 2. Because I think even in all of the examples that you're showing, there aren't too many examples of that configuration of windows. And I think it would be nicer in the living room too. I just think it would, So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Is there a motion?
Chair Sutton?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
This is Rebecca Ballo for the record. I would just recommend when the commission makes the motion, interior issues are not germane. They are not for the purposes of your motion. And if the commission, goes forward with a recommendation for something that does not on the face of it meet the Secretary of the Interior's standards, and that's one of the reasons that the staff, made the recommendation that we did, then you need to find specific evidence in the design guidelines. So not design review issues, something can look great and not be historically, architecturally compatible. So I would point you towards that direction if there is additional text in the design guidelines. But I would also urge you to address in your motion why the text in the design guidelines that's been pulled out about changing windows and doors is not, in your opinion, applicable for this case. Because when staff looks at this too, and this will help us with future applicants, we've recommended in the past that windows on side elevations not be moved, that be denied, and the commission has upheld that. Also looking at, for this property in the future, for their ability to obtain state and federal tax credits, the porch has been changed. If additional changes are made, in particular to the facade, the state will then sometimes say that this property has been so altered that they will no longer be able to, to obtain those tax credits that they might otherwise be entitled to. So that's something else that the staff looks at. If an alteration is proposed that on the face of it to us doesn't meet the interior standards, we tend to recommend against those. But the guidelines hold in advance of the standards. This is a little bit of a rebuttal, what I'm doing here, just to bring it back full circle again to what we're looking at, and then also with your motion, because we want to be able to give, proper guidance to the applicants. Every case is decided on its face. But those are just my additional comments. So thank you for the leeway to do that.
Okay.
There's,
Oh, Commissioner Radu.
Just a question to Rebecca Battle. I think on the report, Dan showed the guidelines for the Tacoma Park, which actually allowed some changes in exceptional circumstances, or I don't know exactly the text, but allows. It's like not prohibited, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm going to pull those up real quick just so I can cite chapter and verse. So what, it's part of the major additions prong, and it says major additions, where feasible, be placed to the rear of the existing structure so that they are less visible from the public right-of-way. Additions and alterations to the first floor at the front of a structure are discouraged, but not automatically prohibited. It's one of those things that maybe a little more guidance in that guideline would have been helpful, but so figuring out why, again, findings contrary to the staff report are what need to be included in this in the HPC's motion.
I have a question. If in this work, they leave the door where it is, but flip it so that the door will swing inward and to the left hand, would that would be an acceptable change to the door, correct? Because then it moved, then when you walk in, you could turn to the right and go around to the side.
So in the past, we have reviewed door swings as having no material effect on the exterior appearance of the resource, because it's just the hinges and the hardware that get flipped.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Haynes?
Can I ask a question of the applicant?
Yes.
Per Rebecca Ballow's rebuttal regarding tax credits, is that something your clients might be, understand that they may be giving up tax credits, and are they willing to do that?
Yes, my clients do understand that and are willing to do that.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll make a motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve HOP number 1054004 at 511 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park, based on the recommendation of staff conditions 1, 2, 3, but modifying condition 4 to include the alterations to the front windows and doors based on the Tacoma Park Historic District design guidelines that state contributing resources should receive a more lenient review than those structures would have been if outstanding, and that the design is compatible with existing patterns rather than focusing on the scrutiny of the architectural detailing. I find that the precedents provided were sufficient quantity that an asymmetrical organization of the windows, doors would be acceptable, and that alterations or alterations to the first floor at the front of the structure, while discouraged, are not necessarily automatically prohibited. So I think we have some leeway in modifying that in this specific case, and that is my proposal. And then, thank you. And then the sixth condition, a new one, is that, or the fifth condition, pardon, is that the addition be inset 6 to 8 inches on either side of the addition.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Galway. I'll second it.
Thank you. I would like to do a roll call on this. If you agree with the motion and the second, starting on my left, you say aye or nay, or I suppose there's a abstain. Yes, thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
This is Commissioner Burdett, aye.
Commissioner Pelletier, aye.
Commissioner Dolman, aye.
Commissioner Rado, aye.
Commissioner Dominiani, aye.
And Chair Sutton, aye. Thank you so much. Okay, next item on our agenda is number 3A, which is a preliminary consultation at 8661 Colesville Road in Silver Spring. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Mr. Chair. This is a preliminary consultation for an addition to the building at 8661 Colesville Road in Silver Spring. This is a property located within the Silver Spring Central Business District Locational Atlas District. It was constructed in 1992 as an addition to the circa 1947 Hex building. So this will be reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and the recently adopted Silver Spring and Downtown and Adjacent Communities Plan. So the proposal is to construct a residential tower above the existing three-story building that will top out at approximately 300 feet, which is the height allowed under the newly adopted zoning. Staff finds this to be a substantial alteration and it must satisfy the requirements outlined in 24A-10. So again, the Hex building was constructed in 1947 and then in 1950, 2 stories were added to it. The site plan for City Place development, which is now Ellsworth Place, was approved by the Planning Board in 1991 with an approved office tower above. The tower was never built, but the structural support for the tower was constructed into the building. So it's always been anticipated as happening at a future development. And what you see outlined in the red dashed line is the area of structural supports in the existing building. So again, this is the facade of the Hex building from the southeast corner. This is looking down Colesville Road towards the Metro stop, and then looking across the street. And then this is the location intended to be used as the proposed entrance of the residential space, which will have its own independent entrance. So what you see is the roof plan for the proposed commercial or residential building, which will be, again, 300 feet tall. And then we're just going to take you through some of the plans and the precedent images provided in the application. Again, you see the proposed residential entrance along Colesville Road with the deep lobby and then the elevator point. And then above the base of Ellsworth Place, there is a residential amenity space. And then the tower rises above with balconies and apartment buildings. And then the top above, the design guidelines encouraged new developments in the Silver Spring downtown area to have definitive sort of bases and columns and top, so a 3-part column plan. So the subject property was before the Silver Spring Design Advisory Panel, which is the DAP. It's the newly created body. We've seen one other project from the DAP before in the Tasty Diner development. So the applicants have met twice with them leading up to this submission, and the DAP supports the project, which will include adding up to 450 apartments. 15% of those will be moderately priced dwelling units. The most recent design alteration came at the recommendation of the DAP, which was to use the cutout in the corner of Colesville and Fenton and to carry that up. And that's why you see sort of the balconies are cut out in the corner there, which just reinforces that corner. So staff finds that the proposed size and massing are generally consistent with the Silver Spring downtown and adjacent communities design guidelines, including the frontage preservation, which allows for the development setback from the historic facade, which states the new building should be set back at least 20 feet from the facade, but more distance may be appropriate depending on the site conditions. The Hex department store is specifically called out, saying frontage preservation to retain the character or defining features of the design, material, massing, and scale. Staff recognizes that the placement of the residential entrance along Colesville Road is based on an approved design with the original 1991 site plan approval. and staff recommends that the HPC direct the applicant to return for a second preliminary consultation before submitting to the planning board for their final site plan review. That's at a time when the design is much more fully developed rather than conceptually and focused on primarily size and massing. So, the questions for the HPC that we would like you to weigh in on are the appropriateness of the placement of the new entrance along Colesville Road and any specific design or material recommendations or revisions, the massing of the proposed residential tower with specific revisions that improve the integration of the tower to preserve and/or promote the adjacent historic resources. And then lastly, does the proposal comply with a specific guidance regarding the frontage preservation for this resource, which is, well, it's the Hex building is the historic resource. Lastly, at the end of the hearing, staff recommends that the HPC hold a vote to transmit their comments in the form of a letter to the planning board for the sketch plan review, which is coming in the not too distant future. And I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Doman.
Yeah, my question is a little bit off of historic, but I walked around the area and there's several buildings that are multi-story. And I'm not familiar with what the zoning requirements are, but is the proposal higher than existing buildings in the area, or is it compatible with existing buildings in the area? I have a hard time judging from the number of stories and everything.
So the recently adopted plan allows for most of the commercial properties in Silver Spring to go up to 300 feet. So the plan intends for higher density in downtown Silver Spring to take advantage of all of the transit opportunities that are there, particularly with the Purple Line station that's under construction. So the height that they're proposing was contemplated by both the planning board and the county council and approved in the recently adopted plan.
Any other questions for staff?
Oh, and if I could just add for additional context, the tower proposed for the Tasty Diner development that we've seen twice is also proposed for 300 feet. So that's another development that's already making its way through the appropriate planning process, but that is contemplating the same height.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Did you say this is rentals and not condos, or has that not been decided?
Well, I mean, the applicant's representatives are here, but in the statement of justification provided with the application material, it specifically identified them as apartments.
As apartments, okay. I will inquire.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Haynes.
Very quickly, how tall relative to the Discovery building is this, or do we know?
Taller.
There you go.
I can look into that Sorry, I can look into that and report back to the HPC, but I don't have that figure at my fingertips.
Okay. If there aren't any more questions, I have Gus Bauman, and I have a host of other names, but I believe you are the representative for this project. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, but with me virtually are the owner, the owner's architect and planner. And we'll stay within your 7-minute limit, and then then answer all your questions about what's going on here.
Terrific. So if you could state your name for the record,
Yes,
and
I
then
will.
when they come on, if they could state their names as well, that would be great. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Gus Bauman. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Beveridge and Diamond, representing the applicant on this preliminary consultation. First, I want to say how much we appreciate the staff report. It's very helpful in terms of what the process is that we've been going through. As Dan has pointed out, we're going before the Silver Spring Design Advisory Panel a third time, which is required under the new Downtown Silver Spring Sector Plan. And we are following the design guidelines as well, which were adopted as a part of that sector plan, which is over 100 pages of how to design buildings in downtown Silver Spring. So we're doing that. And part of the process, as Dan said, is sharing with you so we can get your viewpoints tonight about what you're about to see. As he pointed out, and this is very important to keep in mind in terms of context, this is a project that was approved 3 decades ago. It just never got built. And the only thing that's changing is at the time of the approval by the planning board 3 decades ago, was it was contemplated it would be an office tower. Now it's going to be an apartment tower for all the obvious and logical reasons that you can appreciate. And the other important thing to bear in mind is that this tower, as approved 3 decades ago, will be over the new building that was built as part of City Place, now Ellsworth Place. So it is on that new building from the 90s. With that, I'm going to turn this over, given our time frame, to the owner who is speaking virtually. Kristen will be speaking. With Kristen is the architect, and then also we have our planner, should you have questions that delve into his expertise. So with that, with the magic of the computer, which I'm trusting Dan is going to handle adroitly, we're going to turn this over to some folks in Nashville.
Hi there, thanks for having us tonight. I'm Kristen Heggie with GBT. We are the applicant and owner actually of Ellsworth Place since 2018. So I'll be fast and I'm gonna turn over to Brandon Bell, who has been doing all of our architectural and design work.
Hi, thank you, Kristen. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brandon Bell. I'm an architect with Gresham Smith representing GBT Realty, the client for the Ellsworth project. The staff, Dan has presented a lot of the information that I was going to share tonight. I've got a few other slides I could share and kind of give a little more background to this project. Hopefully you're seeing my screen, but what's unique is, as the staff report had mentioned, you know, we are not building on top of HEX. We are exercising air rights or a design that was original to the mall. This dashed red line you see on the left side of the screen, it shows the extents of the original office tower that was, as you know, as we mentioned, was designed in the original mall. So we are limited on where we can build this new residential tower, if you will. So kind of running quickly through these slides. This was the original office tower that was approved, just so you understand the context of what was approved previously. And then this is the footprint. I think you saw this on Dan's slides. This is the footprint of our tower. It's an L-shaped tower above a total of 25 stories. It's 20 stories above the 5-story mall, trying to get a maximum of 450 rental apartment units. This is kind of general massing ideas, and I'll kind of go through these quickly. I don't have the timer in front of me right now, but you saw this slide. The entrance was always designed for the office off of Colesville. So we're utilizing that existing design or I guess vertical transportation and circulation that's the mall contains for our future residential tower. This is just the amenity level. So this would be the first level above the roof of the existing mall, where we have a combination of amenity space, indoor and outdoor, and the yellow represents rental units. The peachish or orange that's labeled number 6 is indoor amenity. So as Gus and others had mentioned, we've been working extensively with DAP to respond to their comments. And one of their big comments was bringing amenities or distributing amenities through this tower so they're both as close to the street as possible, kind of overlooking the street, and then up at the top. This is the typical residential floor, just a double-loaded corridor, very straightforward. And then this is our upper floor, our upmost floor that has additional amenity and includes a pool that is able to take advantages of the DC views. Step backs as we're complying with zoning and DAP's requirements. And this is just a general view of what this mass looks like with no other context of what's entitled around. This is, if you look at what is entitled around you, these boxes represent those heights, as I think was discussed earlier. General kind of overlays of what this tower massing would look like in context of the mall today. And then this is a section that shows how this fits on top of the mall. So the mall is 5 stories, as I mentioned, 25 stories total tower, which is 20 stories on top. And then we, part of the DAP or part of the sketch plan process, we're required to provide a kind of precedence imagery. So this demonstrates some of the architectural context or language we wish to achieve with the tower on top of the mall. So it's a combination of metal, glass, and other materials. And the image on the far right is resonated best with the DAP, with the DAP panel, and it shows the kind of the main base with the tower on top. And the biggest comment that we're still working with to resolve with DAP is what's called grounding this building. So the Ellsworth residential entry is they're requesting the tower to come down and touch the street as much as possible. So we are restricted in some ways, which the way the structure is designed in the existing mall. We are working with the structural engineer to try to figure out ways to respond to their comments. And this is just one last slide on more of the architectural fenestration language, the positive, negative of the glass and the masonry and metal structure that we'd be looking for on the tower. So that summarizes what we're trying to accomplish and asking for on top of the Ellsworth Place Mall. Can I answer any questions?
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Bell, correct?
Yes.
Yes, Brandon Bell.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Thank you. Are there any plans for the mall?
Kristen, I'll jump in here and feel free to correct me, but
Yes, go ahead.
there are no current plans to improve the mall. We would, obviously anything that is along the street frontage there as you enter the residential tower would have just new doors and signage, if you will, as you enter the mall.
But the corner condition of the mall currently isn't changing.
Correct.
Like that facade
No.
isn't changing at all. Okay.
That's right.
No, ma'am, that curved corner would not.
And it is rentals, you said?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. But if you like a condo, we'll consider condos.
No, that's all right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman.
From your discussion, you haven't settled on a final architectural layout of the windows. You had drawings, page 20 and page 21, which were examples of what the exterior might look like. Is other groups leading you one way or another, or do you have any preferred architectural layout for the windows and the massing, how it's going to look?
That phase will come as we get through the review process. The sketch plan, really focuses more on massing and impressive imagery, but we like the spirit of these images that we had shown, with generally the rhythm of the windows, the kind of the modular aesthetic. So we have not gone beyond that at this point until we get to that point in the approval process.
Any other questions? Commissioner Burdett.
So when, following up on Commissioner Pelletier's comment about the mall itself, the entry to the mall, so you're saying that you're not changing anything but the doors, even though the facade that on that corner and in that area are all pretty dated now? You're not looking to revitalize or update that whole corner?
Are you
to make-
referring to the Colesville-Fenton corner?
Yes.
Not at the moment. Right now, the focus is on the residential tower.
But the entry to the tower is there at that corner, so you're not,
No.
I mean, but it's,
No, actually, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, what
If we
is it?
can go back, I think Dan's going to pull.
oh, it's over by
In fact,
AFI.
if you go down Colesville Road,
I know where it is, yeah.
okay, and that was the entrance built in for the office tower. Now it will be the entrance for the apartment tower, and there it is.
So, Commissioner Burdett, this black wall is the wall to the AFI, and then there's
I
an
got it.
alley between the two buildings.
Okay. I always thought those were exit doors for the theater upstairs, so that's, but I understand where it is, but, okay. I still think you need to do something there for certain.
Any other questions? Commissioner Haynes.
You answered my question that it is taller than Discovery. How many floors are you proposing?
25.
There are
25. And what
25
is,
total, correct.
and do we know what Discovery is,
Well, when we approved Discovery, if I remember right, it was around 15, but I'm not positive now.
so you're in the range of 8 to 10 floors taller, roughly.
It'll be, if this is helpful, you know the new apartment building further down from Discovery on Georgia Avenue that's got the food hall that's about to open? That is more in keeping with the tower we're proposing. No, if you go down Georgia Avenue where Discovery is, keep going south on Georgia, same side, west side of Georgia, there is that very tall apartment tower. That's the newest apartment tower, and they are now building a food hall, which is about to open, and the big signs are up and visible on Georgia Avenue. The height of that new apartment tower that opened during the pandemic is more in keeping with the height of what this tower would be.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. We will now give you what we think. Now, what we usually are able to do here is give you our advice, what we think will either help or maybe things that you should think about as you move ahead here. So would anyone like to kick off the deliberations here? Commissioner Burdett.
So I'm a resident of Silver Spring, and I'm very familiar with downtown Silver Spring. Have lived there for 25 years now. I think, well, one, I'm not pleased about the height of the tower, but again, it was approved 30 years ago, so I won't discuss that, and you have been given extra height now. I guess my comments are going to apply to the Heck building and to the aesthetics or the design of the new building. Now, for the Hex building, it is a really lovely example of modern mid-century architecture, despite it being completely cluttered up with that awful LED screen on the corner, which should come down because you can't appreciate how beautiful that Hex building is with the clutter on it. And that Hex building, by the way, had a significant role in the civil rights activities of the late 50s, mid to late 50s, because there were protests there for the Hex counter, or I guess it was more of a cafe restaurant than a lunch counter.
Yes.
But so we will be keeping a very close eye on the Hex building and that it is properly respected and maintained. Now, as to the new building, Silver Springs had a lot of new residential towers added in the last 20 years. And we are awash in many varieties and many types of styles. Some are better than others. But I think if you want your building to stand out, you might consider looking away from the glassy boxes with the alternating balconies extending, or from the panelization that is just hopefully getting to the end of its fad because it's all over DC and it's really getting old. But in the location where the mall is now was a office building before it was demolished, and this goes back to the development of Silver Spring as a commercial district in the 40s and 50s, and it was a very strong mid-century design. Very strong verticals and very strong horizontals, and it was quite striking. And I'm drawing a complete blank on the name of the building now.
It was the Crib and Cradle.
But the office building.
Next to what Crib and Cradle was?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you might want to consider looking towards that building, the buildings that were there in the 50s and were torn down, because they were quite striking buildings. They were very mid-century modern, and a lot of the architects right now are saying that, you know, mid-century modern is the fabulous thing we're going to do, and yet there are buildings in Silver Spring that are very strong mid-century buildings, and the ones that were lost were even better. And I think it's worth looking to them and their design aesthetic to determine what your new building could do, because you frankly you have the Silver Theater right down the street, you have two low-rise buildings, or two across Fenton and across Colesville. You have low-rise, mid-century commercial buildings that are very fine examples of their type. And I think you can look back to what was in Silver Spring, what was lost, for your design focus, and you can create a unique building that will stand out from all the rest of all of these other towers that have gone up. Because if you don't do something like that, your tower is just going to blend in with everybody else's, and it's not going to be distinctive. And we have this corner that you're on is a prominent corner in Silver Spring, because the two other corners, the catty corner ones, have this design aesthetic going for it. And you have the Fillmore across the street, and you have the Silver. And even though it's a much later version of Deco, you have the Lee building down on the corner. Good or otherwise. But
Yes.
yeah, but I would strongly encourage you to look towards that, look towards the past to get the future, because otherwise your tower is just going to blend in with the rest of the clutter of these towers that we've got all over the place. There's no strong aesthetic, and I think you can set the standard. So good luck with that, and I look forward to seeing your presentation next time.
Anyone else? Commissioner Haynes.
Well, welcome to the future of Silver Spring. Kind of what's striking is the massing, the allowable massing illustration. And as we see from Bethesda right now, which is undergoing massive apartment construction and raising the height of Bethesda buildings. I agree you have a unique opportunity here, being the first and probably at the top elevationally of Silver Spring, kind of a high point of Silver Spring, that you have a chance to do a unique architectural building, and I hope you take advantage of that. I think massing-wise, while I would love to see it come down a few floors, I think that the step backs are appropriate. I think the entry on Colesville Road is certainly appropriate. It will help activate Colesville Road, bring activity, people to the local shops, et cetera. So in general, I think the massing isn't going in the right direction. I agree that it would be nice to do something other than a glass tower, and something that refers back to and relates to some of the lost historic mid-century modern buildings that Silver Spring was identified by, really, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But overall, you know, I don't have any direction in terms of materials or design. That's really not appropriate at this moment, but I think referring back to those historic precedents is a good starting point. And overall, I support the massing. The L shape seems appropriate and helps to reduce the block from the different street views. Kind of relates back to the corner of Fenton and Ellsworth, Colesville and Ellsworth. So I generally support the project.
What else? Commissioner Pelletier.
Thanks. It seems like a lost opportunity not to do something at the ground level. It seems like these are being treated as two separate buildings, the base, which you're not doing anything with, and the top, which you're doing lots with. And I mean, I would assume that ultimately when the thing got built, that wouldn't be the case. But at the moment, it just seems like, I know the top isn't, the tower is not detailed yet, and we don't know what it looks like. But if you're not going to do anything to that horrendous base of building, I really just think it's going to be to your detriment if you have this lovely new glassy tower going up in this primo spot in Silver Spring. So I would just encourage you to integrate the two together and take some major moves to improve that corner from what it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, we will, I believe we're looking to look at this when it gets a little further along, and at that point, hopefully, we will be able to support, we hope, we're able to support this in the next phase. So
Yes,
thank you so
and
much.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, to follow up on your comment and what Dan has said, we have the sketch plan hearing in front of the Planning Board on May 16th. And as you may be aware, the way the process works, that is the first stage in front of the Planning Board. Once that action occurs, then we go into detailed site plan, as you, I'm sure, know. And that is where staff is recommending that before we have our second public hearing in front of the Planning Board at the detailed site plan stage, that we come back to you and share with you what we have come up with. And we're going through an unusual process, I will tell you, in the sense that we're used to appearing, when I say we, I use the royal we. I'm used to coming before the commission on a preliminary consultation. I was present at the creation of the Atlas and of the original master plan for historic preservation and the writing of the ordinance and the creation of your body and all that's gone on since then. But what's new is with the 2022 sector plan for downtown Silver Spring, there, as Dan pointed out, they created another entity, the Silver Spring Design Advisory Panel, about the size of you. You have about 10 people and 12 points of view. And so what we're doing is appearing with them and working with them and with you and with staff at Park and Planning to come up, and I need to say for the record, we've also been before the Silver Spring Urban District Advisory Panel, and they've been very supportive of this. And we've been before the Silver Spring Citizens Advisory Board, which is like going before the Holy Roman Empire. And, but they are very supportive of this. But we're taking all of these viewpoints seriously. And when you heard from Kristen of GBT and Brandon, the architect, we're taking all of this with due seriousness and trying to come up with something that can satisfy what people are looking for, and that the finance people in New York or overseas will agree to finance. So it's that happy marriage of the ideal and the practical, and we do look forward to coming back in front of you. I've lived in Silver Spring for 50 years now. I was recruited out of law school to come here to work at Park and Planning Commission and deal with all these new master plans and ordinances and all the happy citizens who are so happy about all of the master plans and all of the ordinances. And watching the creation of entities such as yours has been a distinct pleasure. And your comments, Commissioner Burdett, are well taken, and I know where you come from. I understand. They were tearing down the Silver Theater on the night that we were able to stop it and get the temporary restraining order as the theater was being torn down. We found the interior doors, by the way, a few years later when we finally found the financing to bring everything back from the state, the county, and the development company. Next time you go to the Silver Theater and you walk inside and you go through those Art Deco 1938 doors, we found them at an antique shop in Alexandria. Had to buy them back and bring them back to Silver Spring, and they were ultimately installed. So I know whereof you speak about what was lost, and many people have worked very hard to bring back what was lost. So your comments are well taken. I know the owner is appreciative. While they can't be here because they're in Nashville, they're watching and listening. They've taken this process very seriously, I can assure you of that. And we look forward to coming back to you before our site plan hearing at the planning board.
Thank you very much. And all of the comments we've made tonight are on the record, so you'll have access to them as well.
Thank you so much. And
thank you.
I'm sure Dan will be sending them to us. He told us that.
Next item on our agenda is, yes, thank you so much. Next item on our agenda is item number 3B, 518 Philadelphia Avenue in Tacoma Park, preliminary consultation, and is there a staff report?
Yes, this is Chris Berger for the record. This is a preliminary consultation for the property at 518 Philadelphia Avenue in Tacoma Park. The property is non-contributing to the Tacoma Park Historic District. It's a minimal traditional style building constructed in the 1930s. It's on Philadelphia Avenue, close to Tacoma Avenue here. It's reviewed under the Tacoma Park Historic District guidelines, the county code, and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehab. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing rear addition and deck and replace them with a 2.5-story rear addition with a new deck. The applicant also proposes to enclose the inset front porch and alter the window pattern on the front of the house in the gable peak. Here's a recent view of the front and right side elevations. As you can see, the building is mostly brick with lap siding up in the gables. Here's the right side elevation. And here's the rear elevation with the deck and that 1-story rear addition visible. The existing site plan is on the left and the proposed on the right, where you can see the proposed footprint of the rear addition back here, and then the location of the porch proposed to be enclosed. First, for the rear demolition, the subject property is outlined in blue. The 1-story addition and deck are circled in red. The addition is 1 story tall and dates to at least the 1950s. It appears to be a former porch that was enclosed. The deck is probably from the 1990s. And here's another view of the deck and that 1-story addition. For the new addition, here's the current front elevation on the left and the proposed rear addition. So you can see that the proposed roof pitch will match the roof pitch of the existing. It'll be about 5 feet taller, and this will be synthetic siding in the gable ends to match the lap siding that's there right now. Here's the existing right side elevation and the proposed that shows the 2.5-story addition. It will be on these brick piers. You can see the new deck that will be built off the back. Here's the proposed addition from the rear. To orient you, the outline right here is this gable that you can see, the existing gable. So that's not going to change at all. That's at towards the front of the property. Here's the left side elevation. Again, deck will be built off the back of the new 2.5-story addition. So So for the next work item, the applicant seeks to enclose the inset front porch, and here are some photos of how the porch looks now. We're getting closer, and then more photos. It measures about 100 square feet. It has this brick support in the corner and this distinctive batten door that likely dates to the home's construction that we would like to see retained if possible. Here's the existing proposed front elevations with the porch circled. Porch will be infilled with fiber cement lap siding with an 8-inch exposure. A 6/1 window will be this was added at staff's request, so that is new from the plans that were included in the staff report. Concrete step will be added right here, and then a new front door. And as I mentioned, we'd prefer to keep the existing front door. Here is the side elevation that shows the porch, how it looks right now with that door, and then with its filled in with the fiber cement siding. So finally, for the existing 6/1 sash window, which is circled up here, it will be replaced with a new 6/1 casement egress window, and then 2 smaller 6-light casement windows will be installed to either side. So the Tacoma Park Design Guidelines for non-contributing properties, like this one, reads as follows. Most alterations and additions to non-contributing out-of-period resources should be approved as a matter of course. The only exceptions would be major additions and alterations to the scale and massing of non-contributing out-of-period resources, which affect the surrounding streetscape and or landscape and could impair the character of the historic district as a whole. And then similarly, per the county code, the HPC is to be lenient in its judgment of plans for structures of little historical or design significance, such as our subject property, or for plans involving new construction, unless such plans would seriously impair the historic or architectural value of surrounding historic resources or would impair the character of the historic district. Also, we find that the proposed work meets the Secretary of the Interior Standards numbers 2, 9, and 10. With that said, we do request feedback on the massing of the addition, particularly as seen from the sides. And as you know, front porches are distinctive features in Tacoma Park. And although staff believes enclosing the porch on this non-contributing resource does meet the applicable regulations, we would like to know if you agree with that. And if so, we'd like your thoughts on the enclosed porch design. Staff has received direction from the HDC that additions should be inset at least a foot, which of course that was discussed earlier this evening. So we'd like your input on what would be good on this particular proposal. And the applicant's architect said the existing wood lap siding exposure is 8 inches, but he is not aware of the existence of a smooth 8-inch fiber cement siding that would match. So if that's not available, we would like direction on what size you would find appropriate. And I'm sure the architect can speak to that further. And of course, finally, the last bullet, we'd like your direction on whatever else you find pertinent. So staff believes the application won't need another preliminary consultation and can return for a HOP once your input is integrated into the plans. Staff recommended the applicant provide 13 items that are listed in the staff report for the HOP submission. The applicant already got started on many of those, so only these 7 remain to inset the addition at least a foot. Again, based on earlier discussion, that may change. Spec sheets for all the building features, label the existing type of asphalt shingle roof, whether it's 3-tab or architectural, and include those specs, and label all proposed materials and features, the tree impact assessment, and the window grills to be either full divided or simulated divided with permanent exterior and interior grills, and the last, move the existing front door to the exterior wall of the proposed enclosed porch. Any questions for staff?
Questions for staff?
Yes.
Commissioner Doman.
On item number 3, this is Commissioner Doman. Item number 3, about the addition being set in at least 1 foot is a recommendation. What was the current status from, as the applicant has put into it right now? What is it set in at? Is it 6 inches?
I'll let the applicant answer that. I don't know if it's inset at all, but I'll leave that to the applicant.
Okay.
Questions for staff? If not, I would invite, I believe, Rick Vitulio is here. Vitullo, sorry. Is the owner here as well? Are you representing the owner? Oh, thank you. Okay. If you could state your name. As you know, for the record, you'll have 7 minutes to do your presentation. Thank you.
This won't take long. I'm Rick Vitullo. I'm the architect for 518 Philadelphia. My clients and I are in agreement on most of the staff recommendations on this HOP. However, there are a few items to discuss. On the lap siding, staff recommends that we match the existing siding, the existing wood siding. For this project, we are proposing fiber cement siding for all the new wall surfaces in the front enclosure and in the rear addition. In my research, I have found only one readily available fiber cement product that matches the 8-inch exposure, and it's by GAF. However, the GAF 8-inch exposure siding only comes in a striated texture. James Hardie makes a smooth fiber cement siding, but it's the maximum 7-inch exposure. So if the commission can discuss this and provide me some clarification on which they would prefer, smooth at 7 or striated at 8. I couldn't find anything else that would come close to that. Also, HPC staff recommended that we add additional windows on the right side elevation. In the proposed design of the right side elevation, there are 2 large windows on the first floor of the addition and 1 on the second floor on the current design. On the first floor, there's 2 large windows in a breakfast room, but the only place to add more windows on this first floor would be in the kitchen, and that would decrease the functionality pretty greatly. On the second floor of the rear addition, there's already a large glider window in the bathroom, and the other space along the right side is a walk-in closet, so a window in there would be a problem. So we don't really think another window on the second floor is desirable either. So we'd like some guidance on that. Now, on the inset, staff recommends that we inset the addition a foot on the right side elevation. Because this project is a non-contributing resource, and the guidelines state that HPC shall be lenient in its judgment for plans involving new construction that would seriously impair the historic or architectural value of the surrounding historic resources. But since HPC staff also supports the entire addition, the entire 2-story addition, and that we are indeed differentiating new from existing in the materials, fiber cement siding on the addition versus brick on the existing house. We're breaking the wall planes between the existing and new by 4 inches, although we could accept 6 inches if we're pushed to it. And by locating the major addition to the house 75 feet back from the front right-of-way, it doesn't quite seem to us that a 1-foot inset is warranted. And it is our opinion that having a 4-inch inset versus a 1-foot inset would make enough of a difference to, according to the guidelines, seriously impair the historic or architectural value of the surrounding historic resources, or would impair the character of the historic district. But our primary opposition to this 1-foot inset for us is the fact that it would create an unnecessary break in the layout and functionality of the kitchen because the inset comes in the middle of a run of cabinetry. If it came between 2 different rooms where there was a wall at that inset, it would be no problem to inset it. But in this case, it's smack dab in the middle of a kitchen. So we're asking the commission to accept a lesser inset of 4 to 6 inches. So, thank you.
Any questions? Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, I'm looking at the floor plan, and it looks like, if I understand right, there's a small closet, or there was an addition on the back of the house, and the new addition incorporates part of that old addition, and it's now called a closet. Is that correct? Where I'm looking at, I guess it'd be the floor plan of the house, and this would be the right side of the house. Yeah, up there.
That's the left, well, yeah.
Is that yeah?
That's
Okay, that'd be the left side.
Left side of the house.
Right. Now that shows an inset right now on that.
Yes.
Is that like 4 inches, something like
It's
that?
about 4 inches, yeah.
So you're more or
kinda
less
matching that.
mimicking that on
Yes.
the right side.
Yes.
To copy that. And you end up with the same wall plane on the inside, but yet the outside is your walls 2x6s or 2x4s?
Right.
How
With
do
the
you
new-
get a smaller wall to match up with the existing wall?
The existing wall is solid brick masonry. It's 9 inches thick. The new wall would be 6 inches with 2x6s.
Okay.
There might be a small offset on the inside because of that, but we could pad out the existing wall in the rest of the kitchen. We just don't want to pad it out a foot to make a consistent wall plane on the inside.
Okay, but it sounds like you could live with 6 inches,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The questions? Commissioner Burdett?
The facade of this house is, like, you heard me, I live in the area, right?
Right.
Very close. So the facade looks very much like the houses over on Gist and then over on Sunnyside, but the paint job's throwing me off, I think, is what my problem is. And are there other homes by the same developer in the immediate area?
Boy, that's a good question.
It's non-contributing.
Pretty
so you didn't
unique
have
to me.
Yeah.
I've never seen that triple window in front like that, which looks like it's not, I mean, it's odd that there's a brick arch that doesn't match it.
That's
That
what's
seems very odd.
throwing me, because there's
Yeah.
a bunch of little houses over on Gist in the same
Where's
block.
Gist?
Back behind 2 blocks, back behind,
Okay.
okay.
Near Boston?
Yeah, and then the next block
Yeah.
to the east. Trying to, yeah, I got that
Yeah.
right. But anyhow, but I don't think they have the brick arch, but they are little 3-part,
Yeah.
little arch windows.
I mean, the windows look very old. They look, to me, original.
They probably
But the
are.
facade is just odd.
Yeah. The same developer kept going block to block and picking up
Yeah.
lots and along the way. That's my only question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We will start our deliberation. You know the drill here. I think you've been before us a few times, as I recall. Would anyone like to start off the discussion here?
I will.
Okay, Commissioner Burdett.
All right. I'm fine with the 6-inch setback. I think that's enough. We've allowed other contributing resources to go down if need be. I do find the massing of the addition to be very large, high, tall. And I think it would be worth getting a 3D rendering for us to see, to prove it's not as striking and as tall as it looks on the front elevation. I don't think I'm not going to weigh in on the siding exposure. That's really, I'm not that interested in it. I am interested in enclosing the porch. I don't like that. I think that's a mistake. And if you want to see a bad one done like that, go over to Violet Place. And there's a house there right across from mine that they did that, and it looks really dreadful. I think if they need that enclosed square footage, And I understand Philadelphia is a very busy place. Isn't exactly the kind of porch you want to sit out and enjoy the quiet. But I think they could do a very glassy sunroom type of enclosure that would preserve that balance on the front of the masonry with the 3 windows and then a visible glassy porch. And that is south facing, but it's pretty dark, right? It's not terribly sunny. It wouldn't get that much solar gain. I think that would give them what they need in that they're using it as a mudroom essentially, or a coat room. And I think they could flip the coat room and the little benches with each other and then have this kind of glassy jewel box on the front of their house and not close in a very, and particularly the way it looks, it's very unattractive. It's just a bunch of siding and a door, and that's very not appropriate for that elevation. So I would not favor enclosing that porch the way it's currently represented, and I think come back with something else that is a little more transparent, and it will work better and be more acceptable. And I do agree with staff, you should keep the door. That's a really cute little door, and I think that can be worked into it. Maybe not the same color, but, you know, the same door itself. I think that's it, other than I do have concerns about the massing of the addition off the back.
Thank you. Commissioner Haynes.
Thank you. I agree with the 6-inch offset. I think that's sufficient. I think the 7-inch smooth siding would be fine. I'd prefer that over a textured 8-inch siding. I think it'll be hard to know the difference between 7 and 8 from the sidewalk. But I share Commissioner Burdett regarding the massing. It's, you know, when I first looked at the front elevation, I thought, oh, that kind of looks very, very nice to scale. But then when I look at the side elevation, and it could be deceiving, but it feels like there's this big piece that's been attached to the back of the house. And I understand this is a, you know, non-contributing resource, but it is a really nice little architectural jewel box in itself. So I can't tell at the moment if the massing is detrimental to the character of the streetscape or the adjacent neighboring homes. But from the side views, it's jarring. And so you do us a really big favor providing good 3D renderings. I'm conflicted about the front porch because I like porches. I know it's on Philadelphia Avenue. I was wondering if you could sacrifice the bedroom 2 to make that and understand the functional need for the closets and so forth. So maybe take bedroom 2 and make it that space, and then take bedroom 2 and add it to the family room addition, you know, where that bedroom 1 closet, which is, I know it's a nice sized closet, but maybe that could be reduced. Maybe you could get to that bedroom from the storage room and just reconfigure that as a part of a 1-story bump on the back of the house. Just a thought. Otherwise, I agree that more glass, if we're going to keep the porch enclosed, that perhaps a little more glass will make that feel, still maintain that porchy character, more of a glass conservatory. I know that's a little stretch, but that concept. You know, overall, I'm okay with the plan maneuvers. Just really the massing is hard for me to fully understand the impact on the house, but it feels like it's hovering over the original little 1.5-story cottage. I'm fine with the windows in the front second floor, that casement egress window and the flanking windows. I think that's fine as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Doman?
Thank you. I can't get excited about enclosing the front porch. I'm sorry, I like the porch, and as people have expressed before, it's not the best place to be sitting because it's on Philadelphia Avenue, but I kind of like the way the porch is, and I like the door that's existing there, even though it's not completely visible from the street. I think it adds a lot of charm to this house. One thing could suggest, we're talking about the massing of the house, and on the elevation view, I guess this would be the right side. You have only one window on the second floor. On the right side, you have two windows on the left side. We have asked before in other applicants that you could create a fake window there so that it breaks up the long area where there's no window and all you have is siding along there. So this area where it's on the screen in front of us, put another window there to balance it out so you have two windows, but it's not a real window, it's just a fake window that looks like the drapes are closed in it. I think that would break up that siding quite a bit. And I did walk by the house, and because of where it sits, I really don't see the sides of it very much. And I think the proposed view straight on, the way that the gable matches the existing gables, I think that looks fine. So I don't have any problem with the addition, or the window treatments and the octagon vents that are put in there. I think all that looks fine, but I can't get excited about the front porch. That's the main thing. Thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Thanks. I have a different take about the front porch. I think if you're going to fill it in, it should be brick. And there's nothing more depressing in Tacoma Park to see these front porches with big brick piers, and they just get sided in. There's so many of them all over. But I totally see why you're doing it. But I feel like the door is kind of shoved over really far, into the brick. I feel like if the door was moved over a little bit and the whole porch was bricked in to match the other brick on the house, and it had a window, I think it would look more intentional. I get concerned with the siding infill on these brick pier porches. So that's all I would suggest on that one. The massing, I think it looks adorable from the front. But it is a little concerned to see it on the side. But when I drove by the house, you can't really see, like Jim said, you can't really see too far back. And it's kind of up a little bit. So I'm less concerned about the massing, but it would be nice to see a SketchUp 3D massing just to see kind of how that's going to translate into real life. But in general, I think it's I can support it. The front porch is a little heartburn forming, but I would like to see it as a little brick entry, I think. But I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Radu.
Just to say that I'm aligning myself with Commissioner Pelletier about the porch. I think I don't mind if it gets enclosed, and that with that little play in the facade, and it's just a little step back. I think the volume of the house, especially even with the addition, will look a little more prominent, so maybe the addition will look even smaller if the porch is enclosed. So, but other than that, I'm in support of the project.
Anyone else? I'm going to side with those who feel like the porch should not be enclosed, and I think the glass would be appropriate. So I guess I don't know what to tell you. I think it's about half and half, but I think probably you can justify either way. But I think one of the things that really defines Tacoma Park, when I've been there, is that a front porch is really appropriate in most of the houses. So I would like to see that maintained, but I don't I wouldn't have absolute heartburn if it was filled in, but I would like to see it open. So that's my 2 cents. Anyone else? Thank you so much. Hope this is helpful. All of the, yeah, maybe it's not. I think it is. I think we're giving you some good advice here. Anyway, all of our comments will be on the record, and staff will be happy to work with you on this project. So thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda are tax credits, group number 2.
Yes, Mr. Chair, a report for group number 2 of the 2023 calendar year historic preservation tax credit applications were distributed to the HPC. This group includes 12 applications that consist of $98,883 of eligible expenses, and we request that you approve them and direct us to transmit them to the Department of Finance when it's appropriate.
Thank you. And in the past, I would welcome a motion to approve these and hold them until we have all of the tax credits in when we will submit them to the Department of Finance. So I would welcome a motion.
This is Commissioner Burdett. I make a motion that we approve the Group 2 Historic Preservation Tax Credit applications for calendar year 2023. Yep, okay. And we hold, and staff can hold them until it is appropriate to forward them onward.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. Next item on our agenda is number 5, which are minutes from the February 21st meeting. Do I have a motion? I will make a motion. I make a motion that we approve the minutes from February 21st.
This is Commissioner Burdett. I second the motion.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank
This is
you.
Commissioner Rado. I abstain. I wasn't here.
Ooh, okay. Thank you. Commission items. And I believe there is a staff item.
Yes, Chair Sutton, there is a staff item. In the county executive's recently proposed CIP, there is an item for additional funding for the Boyd's Transit Center. This was heard by the County Council's T&E Committee earlier in March, and the council staff recommended that the members of the committee concur with the county executive's request for increased funding. Specifically, the executive is asking for $1.55 million additional be allocated for the project due to construction cost inflation, the addition of a comfort station for bus operators, and the addition of stabilization efforts for the historic site at Hoyles Mill. Specifically, again, I'm reading from the council staff report. The Hoyles Mill stabilization effort is MCDOT's attempt to meet the requests of the Historic Preservation Commission. So the stabilization element of the cost increase might be important to prevent further decline and higher potential costs in the future. So the specific dollar amount, if the commission chair and vice chair remember in our discussion with MCDOT, they had talked about moving some GO bonds around for $300,000. This is separate from that. So the entire request, again, is for $1.55 million, with at least $500,000 of that would be allocated for the structural stabilization of the Hoyles Mill. And that is my understanding of the breakdown of those numbers. This request will be heard by the full council on March the 18th. So I bring this to your attention. The HPC does not need to come and testify. I've confirmed that with the council staff, but a letter from the commission recommending that the council adopt the executive's proposed CIP would be welcome.
Thank you. And I would like to make a motion. First of all, this is fantastic news. Thank you. I would like to make a motion that we submit a letter to County Council in support of this project. This is what I think some of the best news we've had lately.
This is Commissioner Burdett, and I second that wonderful motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
If I get a no, I'm gonna, I don't know what I'm gonna do. No, any no's? Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. Anything else?
Nothing else, Chair Sutton.
Wow, I almost broke it.
Boy, that was a
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.